All right, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to session 2 in our World of Export webinar series. Today, we'll be looking at the strategies for entry into new markets. All right, so we hope you are all well, all safe, all dry, the amount of rain we had today. So to kick things off, we have Mr. Keegan Barrett from Exim Bank. He's the Marketing and Research Officer. So I'd like to invite him to bring greetings from Exim Bank. So Keegan, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Cedron Collins, General Manager, Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Michelle Lo Shitong, the facilitator, participants. Good evening, everyone. The Exim Bank is delighted to be a program partner for this Export Readiness Workshop Series, a timely initiative developed by YBTT to equip businesses with the knowledge and skills necessary to thrive in the global marketplace. The Exim Bank mission is to increase national foreign exchange earnings, and we are committed to offering financing solutions tailored to the firms in the private sector to enable them to boost their capacity to export. We have been working closely with our clients and are seeing the continued efforts of various ministries, business support organizations, government agencies, and growth-oriented companies. According to the 2022 Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean report, non-energy exports from Trinidad and Tobago reached 83.2 billion in 2022, which is a 71% increase from 2019. This growth in non-energy sector exports is a positive development for Trinidad and Tobago, and it is helping to diversify the economy, create jobs, and reduce the country's dependence on oil and gas. Despite these positive steps in the right direction, the energy sector remains the largest contributor to exports, accounting for approximately 75% of exports. There's more work to be done by all the relevant stakeholders to boost the non-energy sector in terms of export generation. We are extremely happy to partner with YBTT and play a role in building the capacity of our non-energy sector businesses and entrepreneurs through this series. As you all are aware, the global economy is becoming increasingly interconnected. This means that businesses that want to grow and succeed need to be able to sell their products and services in new markets. Exporting can be a great way to expand your business into new markets. However, it can be a risky proposition. This is because there are numerous factors that can affect your ability to collect payments from overseas buyers, such as currency fluctuations, political instability, and changes in trade regulations. This is where export finance comes in. At the Exim Bank, we can provide you with the financial information on our trade finance services to help guide your decision on the best option that is right for your business. Through the expertise of the facilitator, we expect that many of the businesses and entrepreneurs at today's session on strategies for entry into new markets to gain insights into what to consider when entering a new market and the key challenges that are likely to be faced. We look forward to an interactive and engaging second session to the Export Readiness Workshop series. I thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Keegan. Guys, so just a reminder before we hand over to our facilitator, remember we'll be taking your questions in the chat, so you can drop them in the chat and we'll go through them after. My name is Jonathan Khan. I'm the training coordinator at YBTT, so I'll be with you all this evening. And our facilitator, Miss Michelle Lo Chutong, you all would have met her already. She has a wealth of experience in coaching businesses, and she is an expert in the field, and we would like to welcome her to present this afternoon. So, Miss Michelle, over to you.
Thank you very much, Keegan. A pleasure to be here once again as we now focus on the second session in this export readiness series, as mentioned by Keegan. Before we kick off, let me just get my slides in order so that I can share with you. Okay, so Jonathan, you're seeing everything on the screen, yes?
Yes, I am.
All right, wonderful. So everyone, once again, welcome. Welcome to the second session in the Export Readiness Series. This afternoon, we are treating with strategies for entry into new markets. We have quite a bit of stuff to cover this afternoon, and I'm going to try my best to see how we can get through the majority of it. But we are treating with market entry strategies for export markets, and there are a number of strategies that you can take into consideration when looking at developing your export markets. And I want to be able to touch on each one of these. That I think I would have been mentioning 10 here today, so we want to take a closer look at those. But in terms of the session, I will just do a very quick recap in terms of session 1, just do a brief introduction in terms of market entry strategy, and then the focus of today's session, market entry strategies for your export growth. So we are looking at the methods. Then I will turn my attention to some of the risks that you need to be aware of, and looking at market entry from a services perspective, even though as I go through the presentation today, I would be touching on some of these strategies where services also have a role to play. And then we will try and end with selecting the right market entry strategy, which is really a good point in terms of ending today's session, because it feeds right into the third session that treats with the effectiveness of the importance of market research as it pertains to advancing your export development. So in terms of session 1, we touched on a few things. Again, that session would have treated with developing your export potential or capacity. And in doing so, we looked at the benefits of exporting, which we can all appreciate in terms of you increasing your sales, achieving higher profits, and most likely achieving economies of scale. Basically your business can grow into a global one. You will gain new knowledge, and you can increase your competitiveness both globally and domestically as well. And then we looked at the challenges of exporting, because it's not as easy or simple as having someone make contact with you and then you just start producing and you ship. It's not that easy. There are a lot of different areas that need you need to be concerned with, and that includes language, the cultural differences depending on the markets. It's a lot of paperwork. You need to have the human resource requirements internally to do so, or have access to persons who can assist you in that regard. And of course, you are exporting. You're exporting because most likely you're doing very well in the local markets, and you see that there's opportunity in regional markets and even extra regionally. And that means that there's going to be competition. So that is a real challenge, and you need to understand how to treat with that. Also, we are talking about export readiness, and you're seeing here that an export readiness business is one that has the capacity, the resources, and management to deliver a marketable product or service on a global scale at a competitive price. So just with that one statement in terms of export readiness of a business, there's so many things that are happening within that one statement, because before looking outward in terms of your exports, you have to place that spotlight internally within your business. And that's where the export readiness checklist also comes into play. In terms of you designing a roadmap or the way forward for your business, that comes with an export plan. And I would have ended, I think, the session, the first session there in terms of treating with the tenets of an export plan in terms of development. Because once you assess your export readiness and you're ready to go, then you need to chart the way forward. And there's no greater way to do that than to place and detail your strategy within an export plan. An export plan being part of your business plan, but its main focus is on your export markets or international markets, and it's a roadmap that is supposed to help you achieve success in your export markets. I've said this before already. In terms of your internal resources, you have to shine the spotlight there. If you are a product-based company, you have to look at your manufacturing operations in terms of capacity. You have to look at your human resource requirements. Do you have internally persons with international marketing experience, international trade experience? Do you have the financial capability? And if you don't have it, do you have access to the funding that is required? As well as legally, you're going to need to have legal resources. And in terms of your product and its competitiveness in the marketplace, do you have what is required for product adaptation if it is necessary? So again, in terms of assessing your export potential, you need to turn that you need to look inward, review your product or your service to ensure that it can meet the needs of the potential customer within the export market, review your customer profile, look at your product manufacturing. Now you have to think a lot more in terms of transportation, and transportation cost is very, very real because it adds to the cost of the product. And if that product is not competitive in the export market, well, then there's no need for you to be there or to go there. What are the legal requirements in terms of your product? You may have to look at IP, meaning intellectual property, and as well in terms of your capacity. Do you have the internal capacity to produce for an export market or export markets on a continuous basis, ensuring that your export development is sustainable? Exporting goods and exporting services presents different challenges. The former must deal with packaging, customs, and physical delivery, for example, while in terms of services, you have to look at things such as your work permits, credential validation, whether you have the certs to operate within the markets, you have, maybe language, and you have the ability to travel in terms of the various visas, depending on the export market that you're focused on. So basically, that is the session wrap up from last session held on June the 20th. And I hope that you would have been able to internalize some of that information. And now as we set our sights on looking at the market entry strategies. And when we talk about market entry strategies, we also ask ourselves some questions as a business owner. Which country do we enter? I get asked that question a lot. When do you enter? The scale of entry. Do you go big? Do you put all of your resources behind your entry into that market? But what if you haven't done the proper market research? And then, of course, what we are treating with today, the method of market entry. There are a variety of ways in which a company can enter foreign markets, and no one market entry strategy works for all the markets that you will target. You can choose either to utilize direct exporting or as an appropriate strategy, or indirect exporting, and we will talk more about that. There could be opportunities for you to enter into joint venture arrangements, or you may look at licensing in terms of your the manufacturing of your product. So there are a number of factors that will influence your choice of strategy, including but not limited to the degree of adaptation as it pertains to your product that is required for the new export market, marketing, logistics in terms of cost, and so on. But while all of these things are given due consideration, the fact is that yes, there is a cost, but it is expected that your increase in sales would offset these costs within the market. And that's where your export planning becomes critical and key in terms of your decision to export. I also just want to take the opportunity right here as we are now starting the introduction to market entry strategies to just let you know that as a business, and not just in terms of exports, risk is always important. And exports, when you're looking at exporting, obviously the risk could be a lot higher at the end of the day. So the more the risk, the more value a qualified advisor might bring to your business. So if you do not have, after you have done an assessment of your business and you realize that you do not have the resources or you are absent of certain skills, it would be wise for you to look at bringing yourself up to speed in some of those areas where you are deficient, either by, reaching out to some of our business support organizations that can provide you with the assistance. You have Export TT in terms of manufacturing and the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries as it pertains to services if you're a service-oriented business. So you do not have to go it alone. The fact is there are many, many challenges, including culture, religion, laws within the export market that you're targeting, and nothing going forward requires a lot of in-depth market research. And these entities can actually assist you in that regard. When to enter the market will always be a question. It actually comes back to your risk appetite, but I would encourage you not to get to that point. Sorry, not to pursue that particular avenue unless you are backed by proper research and you have completed your export plan. Your scale of entry, of course, has to treat with cost. Entering a market on a large scale will require a significant amount of resources, and you need to be sure that that is the preferred way or method to go in terms of spending a lot of money to get into that market in terms of product adaptation, in terms of marketing on the ground. And if you are even setting up a physical presence in the market, all of that is capital intensive, and you have to ensure that you're making the right decision, right? Sometimes entering on a smaller scale can offer the business a chance to learn about the new market or region and limit your risk. However, you are much less likely to gain significant amounts of attention in doing it that way. But quietly entering export markets is sometimes the best plan, especially for small businesses that do not have the quantum of resources that a large scale business may have. So keep those things in mind because as of now, we will now look at the methods of market entry. Once you know where you're going and the scale of your market entry, you will need to work out how to take your business overseas or to the export markets that you are targeting. And this will require careful consideration as your decision could significantly impact your results. And there are several market entry methods that can be used. On the screen, you would see a few of those market entry methods to which I'm referring, of which exporting is one of the market entry methods into the international markets. Then you have licensing, you have franchising, specialized modes like piggybacking, counter trade, and so on. And then of course we have from an investment perspective, foreign direct investments, greenfield investments, and so on. I will be touching on some of those things as we go forward. However, again, the decision to utilize any one of these modes of entry into new markets has to be lined up against, the advantages that you will receive in those markets. And I also want to encourage you at this juncture that even at this particular level, as you are looking at possibly what markets to enter, which markets you should enter, you must conduct proper market research. And that also includes you doing in-country, meaning the export market that you're targeted, due diligence on the potential market entry methods and the potential partners that you may align yourself with in order to get into these markets. So now let's just take let's just look at those market entry strategies. And the first one would be exporting. And there's several options to consider regarding exporting as a market entry strategy for new markets. Exporting is, it's the direct sales of goods and services to another country, and it bears the lowest risk for companies. At the end of the day, in terms of SMEs on a global scale, it is the preferred market entry method utilized by small and medium-sized firms in terms of growing their exports. And even within exporting, you can export directly or you can export indirectly. When we talk about exporting directly, we are looking at companies that sell the product they manufacture in international markets without a third-party involvement. And that means that they go in there and they just basically sell their products on their own. Companies that normally do this would be companies that actually produce a lot of luxury products or have actually sold goods in the past. And they basically choose this method to go into the target market country, on their own without any assistance. That tells you that they have the resources that is required to go in there and set up and establish their brand on the ground right away, because they also have the brand recognition as well in terms of getting into the markets. But the fact remains that businesses often choose indirect exporting, especially when they are now beginning. And the indirect exporting tends to bring a high return on investment, because you are now going to be utilizing intermediaries. That includes sales agents and distributors, especially as it pertains to product-based companies. If you're a service company, you would normally want to look at hiring either a representative on the ground who understands the lay of the land, who understands, what you're trying to achieve in the markets, or you form a strategic alliances as well, which is another form of indirect exporting, and I will be talking about that shortly. The fact is, the method that you choose will depend upon the amount of time, staff, and resources you have to distribute and market your product, and the amount of knowledge you have about your international markets that you're targeting. So now let's turn our attention to licensing. Licensing allows another company in your target country to use your property, meaning your product. The product in question is normally it's normally like trademarks, production techniques, or patents, and the licensee will normally pay a fee in order to be allowed the right to use the property. However, you also have situations where you are a developer or an inventor. You have developed a product and you are looking at basically getting that product into the international markets. You would have visited, let's say, the local IP office, and trying to understand what your rights are in terms of IP. And then you could also look at getting patents as well. And when you get those patents, you then have patents for different regions, and you can actually find partners within some of those jurisdictions that where you can license your product. They will then be given rights to produce your product, to market your product, to distribute your product within that particular market. And I can give you an example of one person who has done licensing and has done it very well. She is a local inventor from Tobago. That's Rona Jack, who developed the Udazzle ruler. Rona has a licensing arrangement with a company out of Denmark in terms of her distribution. It's a well-known case. The local intellectual property office have worked with her considerably, as well as Kariri, from the development perspective in terms of her product. And now in terms of that license agreement that she has with the company in Denmark to actually produce, market the product for the EU, markets in the EU, and that I believe is working really, really well for her. So it's not something that hasn't been done. So basically she collects, royalties from that. So that could be an option for you. But just like anything else, I should say, where there are great benefits, there are also some disadvantages in terms of licensing that you should be aware of as well, because the fact is that the licensee, when you work with the licensee that person will now have a great understanding in terms of how your product works. And when that contract ends with them, in terms of production in that particular market that you have given them access through the patent, they can easily become your competitor now, because they have already produced your product and they can produce it on their own depending on the type of arrangements that you have with them. Hopefully it's a long-term one and it works well and it works positively, and both parties the whole arrangement is mutually beneficial to both sides. So licensing is something that you can consider as a market entry strategy. From a services perspective, this market entry method operates in the same way as the licensing of products. It is a common method for such organizations in terms of IT, internet service providers, IT infrastructure service providers, and so on, any sort of software development as well. The next method I want to look at is piggybacking. Piggybacking is an indirect exporting method, a market entry method. Some domestic companies that already have an extensive exporting system and comprehensive international marketing network, and they are looking for products that complement their lines that they don't necessarily produce. They can actually seek you out if you are producing a product that they believe that is complementary to their line of products. They already have the network in terms of exporting. What they will be doing is basically bringing your product on board, and they will purchase the product from you and sell the product in the export markets. And you basically then will be handing over all of the marketing rights to the product to the company. However, your product will be in the export market, and you would be paid for that. So piggybacking is something that you can consider as well. I know of one company locally, a small scale exporter who have utilized one of our conglomerates locally and their network within the region, and they actually have allowed them to add their product to their suite of products, and their product is now being sold in Barbados, Guyana, Grenada, and so on, utilizing the export network of the larger company. So it is something that is cost effective. It's a rapid market entry method, right? And it is low risk. As I said, however, you are handing over, the way that your product is marketed. And for some companies, they want to still have that measure of control, because for them, the product is still theirs. But in this case, that would have to be a decision of the business as to whether or not they want to hand over all the rights in terms of marketing of the product and the sale of the product in the export market to the company. So discussions to be held. You have to know what it is you want out of that arrangement, but it is something that is done a lot more than you would even think or believe at this juncture. The next market entry method is that of franchising. And I think that we are all pretty familiar in terms of franchising. Franchising is somewhat similar to licensing in that the intellectual property rights are sold to the franchisee. However, the rules for how the franchisee carries out business are usually very, very strict. You really have to follow the strict rules that are laid down in your contract as it pertains to the seller of the franchise at the end of the day. So, and that goes in terms of how the product is marketed, how you actually produce the product as well, in-house, and how it is sold. This is normally a situation where you have a lot of big brands or brand recognition, right? And if we can look at something similar in terms of Rituals Coffee. All of us know about Starbucks, but Rituals is our local brand, and they did venture out into the, regionally as well in terms of franchising the entire, coffee business model that they have developed. Now, in terms of success, I can't speak with that. I don't work with them, but it is certainly something that is achievable at the end of the day, and an export market entry strategy that you can also look at in terms of your business. All right. I just wanted, before I move to the next market entry method, for us to take a look in terms of the differences between franchising and licensing. So there are a few differences in terms of these market entry strategies, and the first and most important thing for you to understand is that franchising only deals with the provision of a service, while licensing can be both for services and products. So, for example, a restaurant or a salon can be franchised, but not the products they use to provide the said services. Right. Secondly, in terms of control and influence, the seller has a big influence in terms of how the buyer runs the enterprise. And this means that the seller controls crucial decisions such as marketing strategies and even the quality of the service that is provided. So meaning that the buyer or franchisee has little wiggle room in terms of their decision making. However, when you license your product to a company, they are the ones that are in control of the decision making in terms of what to do with the product or the service, and they do not need your approval. And of course, all of this is going to be detailed very well within that licensing agreements. Support as well in terms of franchising, you're going to have full support from the seller with a franchise. However, with a licensing agreement, you do not typically have that kind of technical support. And in the fourth thing would be the fourth difference would be ownership. In a franchise partnership, the business belongs to the franchisee and that they have taken it over, that is the buyer. But in a licensing partnership, the licensee only pays for a specific product for which the seller may have taken out patent rights for. So I hope that's not too confusing and that you get the gist of it. But there are benefits for both modes in terms of franchising and licensing, and both of them have benefits as well as disadvantages, like with anything else, any other market entry, that is. The sixth market entry that I want to look at is foreign direct investment. And this involves a company directly investing in facilities in a foreign market. It often requires sizable levels of capital to cover costs such as premises, technology, and staff. FDI really and truly, in terms of establishing a new venture in an overseas market or territory that you choose, it is something that is normally done where government is involved. So it could be that there is in-country support for companies participating in FDI. Government incentives may vary by location, but items such as talent attraction, research and development, capital investment incentives, tax credit programs, and so normally become available. And this obviously is not for, let's say, a small company that has started out. These are really large enterprises that are interested in setting up businesses solely in countries where they can access this type of assistance from government, and also with the assistance from government, they're now, getting a good grasp of the regulations that are in place within the territory that helps them in terms of, becoming successful and profitable on the ground. Joint venture. Joint venture as a market entry strategy is one that I think we should be pretty familiar with as well, because you can buy into a company or create a new or shared company in a joint partnership with a person in the international community that you choose. So meaning that you want to get into a particular market, and there is there's another company in the particular market that you would like to work with. Both of you all are coming together. It is a partnership. You are sharing revenues. You are sharing revenues. You are sharing your profits. You are sharing everything. Ownership. All of the resources that are putting is also shared, and you're basically, setting up an entity. A separate entity within the targeted export markets. This offers you flexibility in terms of managing risks. So all of the risks within the export market is not just on your shoulders, but it is borne by both entities that has now formed this single entity within the export market. There are disadvantages to the joint venture model, in that it might be difficult to oversee, and because both partners have ownership and ownership stake, disagreements can happen anytime. But the fact is, disagreements happens whether or not you have a joint venture or not, as you look at entering a particular export market. Okay, some companies specifically go out there and decide, listen, we are not getting into the markets alone. We really and truly want to have a partner, and that partner, the partner that we are selecting, we have specific criteria. We also engage in proper due diligence in terms of selection of that partner within the market as well, so that you reap the best benefits from having this joint venture operation set up within the export market. And I have some examples there, as you can see, between Uber and Volvo coming together, ExxonMobil and India Mobil as well joining together, and quite favorably for both of them achieving success in their export markets. And this is the strategic alliances versus joint ventures. And I wanted to touch on this because this is a big thing, especially for services, for product-based companies that are interested in exporting as well, but especially as it relates to services, because strategic alliances are similar to a certain degree to joint ventures. And you will sometimes notice that people tend to use the two terms interchangeably, but they basically are different. The key difference is that with a strategic alliance, you do not form a new legal entity, right? Normally what you will do, you would sign what we call a memorandum of understanding, where we outline what the roles and responsibilities are for the both parties that would be part of this new venture. Okay, of course, the risk as it pertains to to strategic alliances is a little bit less. And then of course you have, it's not capital necessarily intensive, depending on what the product or service or what you're going after within the market. But what you do find is that strategic alliances tend to be formed when you know, you are looking at you having one particular service available in one country and you want to be able to sell that service into another country. It tends to be easy for you to form that type of partnership with another provider in the target market, and then you're able to have your service being sold there by someone who has the understanding and knowledge of the lay of the land within the export market. And just a little bit more in terms of joint ventures versus strategic alliances. And we see here, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but you know, as I said, the major difference is really that with a strategic alliance, you do not have a new legal entity that is created. Strategic alliances really lead to M&A transactions, meaning M&A meaning mergers and acquisitions, whereas in terms of joint ventures, you can't see that happening. All right, we would normally have a memorandum of understanding that is set up in terms of a strategic alliance, and the participants tend to be either from the same or complementary industries as it pertains to the strategic alliance. And in terms of a joint venture, you can actually be from a totally different industry, but there is some commonality in terms of what you are looking for in the overseas market and what it is you have decided, the company in the export market that you have decided to work with to form that joint venture at the end of the day. The next market entry method that we would take a look at would be wholly owned subsidiary. And a wholly owned subsidiary is somewhat similar to foreign direct investment in that money goes into a foreign company, but instead of money being invested into another company, with a wholly owned subsidiary, the foreign business is bought outright. It is then up to the owners whether to continue to run this as before or to take full control of the wholly owned subsidiary. Owning a company established in your international market or export markets gives your organization credibility, right? As a local business, which can help boost your sales. Company ownership costs more than most market entry strategies, but it has the potential to lead to a very, very high return. And normally what you would find with a wholly owned subsidiary is that you have a parent company that has, you know, 100%, where the subsidiary will have 100% stock holding within that parent company, and the parent's a holding company. If it's a holding company, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical company, but the holding company was basically set up so that you can have the wholly owned subsidiary there. And we do have situations where we have subsidiaries being set up by local companies in export markets. If we even look at Guyana right now, you know, Trinidad and Tobago companies, small, medium, and large businesses have set up subsidiaries in Guyana. You know, we have Ramp Logistics, you can think of Massey, you can think of so many other companies, and they are across various sectors. This may not be something that you can pursue now. You can look at, you know, starting in terms of, you know, just in terms of getting into the markets, getting through indirect exporting with an intermediary like a distributor, and eventually, as your company grows, it could be something that you can work towards. But it is definitely something. It's definitely a market entry method that works. Right, sorry. So the last one I want to look at would be turnkey projects. And a turnkey project is a way for a foreign company to export its process and technology to other countries by building a plant in that country. So this particular market entry method, of course, as you can see, for more large scale businesses, industrial type companies, companies that if you are working, let's say in Trinidad and Tobago, and you have been tapped to produce a plant, for instance, let's say to set up a plant in Guyana, but you're setting up the plant, you're finding the location, basically putting in the infrastructure, getting the talents in place in terms of recruitment, and ensuring that the IT and engineering and construction and everything is done well. And then you hand it over to the company in Guyana that has now recruited you for the turnkey project. The thing is, it gives your company a lot of credibility in the export markets. However, it's basically an in and out sort of situation where you just do this job and then back out. You're not necessarily resident in the country for, as a company that is registered and set up to work, let's say within a joint venture, or if you have established your own physical presence within the market. So I mentioned risk, and I just wanted to touch on risk a bit to tell you that at the end of the day, international expansion is risky business. However, the potential for rewards is enormous, and we can't ignore that. And that is whether it's from a services perspective or product perspective. However, you want to be able to take calculated risk, because when entering an international markets, there are specific types of risk, and political risk and currency risk are two of the key risks that you need to be aware of in terms of how sustainable you will be in those markets in terms of going forward. The political stability within the country is very, very important, something that you need to be aware of and look at very closely, especially as you do conduct your due diligence on the market. And then, of course, the currency risk, the fluctuations in the currency are key to whether or not, in terms of your payments, in terms of how you do business within the particular markets. So just pay particular attention to the target market's currency. And then now I just wanted to touch in terms of market entry strategies from a services perspective. And one of the key ways that we enter markets is through consultancy services. And as it pertains to services. So a market entry strategy would be the selling of consultancy as services. This is a very, very popular market entry method for service-based organization, and it's akin to direct exporting. It involves a service organization providing a service to a customer in a foreign market. And depending on the type of service business involved, employees can actually temporarily work in the foreign markets, or they can work remotely to deliver the services through various communication channels. Now, with digitally now, there's been an explosion in terms of providing consultancy services remotely, and that is not going to stop. It's just the way that the world is doing business. And consultancy services, it tends to be utilized commonly as a market entry method for architects, engineers, website designers, accountants, tax and legal, counsel, and so on. So organizations selling consultancy services obtain similar benefits to those who do direct exporting, which includes being able to withdraw from the market rather easily and inexpensive as well. However, you need to conduct in-depth you need to obtain in-depth information about trade in that target market, ensure that the consulting services that you're providing, can meet the needs of your clients within the target export markets as well. You also want, again, and I will say it again and again, conduct your due diligence on that potential partner within the market that you would possibly join with as you sell your consultancy services if necessary. Or if you're going in to do it alone, the due diligence must be done. You need to understand the markets. You need to really understand the market and have to take into consideration the different regulations, the legal systems, the cultures, just the basic way of how they conduct business, and the organization, whether or not how experienced you are as an organization and how ready you are to be able to sell your consultancy services within the export markets. Another way in terms of services is partnering. So partnering or affiliating with a reputable local service supplier can be an effective way to do business. And that is one of the most common market entry methods for services. You are interested in doing business in the particular target market. You need to ramp up your understanding of and the requirements within the market for you to do business. What do? You try and hook up with someone that is local within the market, that understands the lay of the land, understands the challenges of doing business, have the geographic spread, has the networks that you need, are very knowledgeable about the market opportunities, know who the players are, understand the challenges, have the required certifications or accreditations, qualifications, whatever it is that you need, so that your entry into the market, when you work with them, it's basically a smooth one, and that you can start doing business as quickly as possible. Again, brand recognition can play a big part or role as it pertains to this, as well as you go about, as you set about, trying to get into this particular market. It is something that has been tried and tested in terms of linking with a local company within the export markets. I have done this with my own business, and I can tell you it takes some time. The due diligence that needs to be done takes some time. Don't rush it. You may have someone who may be knocking on your door. There may even possibly be an opportunity that you need to take advantage of almost immediately. However, you need to make that business decision as to whether or not you go forward without doing the proper research. Not doing that proper research and not understanding what you're getting into can be pretty detrimental to your business going forward. And now I want to touch on selecting the right market entry. How to select the right market entry for your business. And again, I'm going to just plug away by stating this: understanding the internal factors and the external factors as it pertains to the market. The internal factors as it pertains to your business, meaning the current state of play within your own company, plays a very significant role in terms of the selection of the market entry strategy that you would choose for the targeted export market that you are interested in. There isn't any one entry mode that is perfect for every company, every market, and every situation. You have to do the work, meaning you have to do the market research, you have to visit. Sometimes there's opportunity for you to attend trade missions, to do in-market visits, for you to do your own ground market research to try and understand, what is happening in the market. And also, you need to understand what the competitive landscape is like as well. And we're going to be talking more about the various market research methods that you can employ as you look at getting yourself ready to actually determine which market is best for you. But very, very important considerations in terms of you making that choice of target market so that your company would be able to be successful. A lot of it in terms of the market research, again, and we can't get away from this in terms of the market entry strategy. but you need to conduct deeper analysis on these markets and understand the characteristics of the markets as well. So and then of course, analyzing your internal capabilities and your resources is important. You also need to set clear objectives for what it is that you're seeking to achieve in the target market as well. All of this helps you in terms of selecting the right market. The analysis should highlight, which entry modes, may prove to be the best fit for your company, because you may say, right, I want to go in there and establish a physical presence. Let's say I'm in construction, and I think that's the best thing for me to go in there and establish a physical presence. However, that may be, really capital intensive, as we all know. Making a profit might take a longer time, but you can look at trying to secure a distributor, which is, an easier entry into the markets. And there are ways. Distribution management is an entire topic on its own, and we're not treating with that in this series, but it is something where you need to spend time understanding how you go about selecting the right distributors in the target market that ensures sustainability in the markets and profitability, of course. I just wanted to share this with you here. So we have talked a lot about the difference. I've mentioned quite a bit in terms of the various market entry methods. And there is this matrix that I will send to you to help you along as you look at determining what is the best market entry method for your business. Because basically you're faced with a number of market entry strategy alternatives when deciding to enter the market, and each one has to be carefully weighed in order for you to make the most appropriate choice. Every approach requires careful attention to marketing risk, matters of control and management. A systematic assessment of the different entry methods can be achieved through the use of this matrix. So I would be sending this out to you. I will be sending it to YBTC, and then I guess they will determine when everything would be coming to you, including the export readiness checklist I mentioned during the first session, and the template for the development of an export plan. So this brings me to the end of my presentation for today. Wow. It's exactly 7. And I just would want to stop share at this point and see what type of questions would be coming at me.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. This was a very informative session. We had one question come in. What are some of the methods used in the process of due diligence analysis for market entry for consultancy services? And as you answer that question, guys, just a reminder, I'm going to drop our feedback form in the chat. So as we get those questions answered, just kindly take the time to complete that form for us. So again, the question was, what are some of the methods used in the process of due diligence analysis for market entry for consultancy services?
Okay, so due diligence. All right, from a due diligence perspective, normally the first thing that you would want to do as a company, whether it's service oriented in terms of consultancy services or for product based, you need to develop your selection criteria for the consultancy business. In terms of let's say you're looking for a partner, they weren't very specific, so I will just throw that in. If you are looking for a partner to extend your consultancy services to in the target export market, you need to develop your selection criteria. You need to know and specifically identify, what it is, what criteria they need to meet for you. Then what you will also need to develop is basically a consultancy services partner form. You need to develop that form to say, okay, I can send this out to companies that I may want to do business with. And in that form, it will detail your criteria. Companies that you are interested in will complete that form and send that back to you. You then online, you can back up what it is you are doing there with your own research. You would look at, you do your desk research to find out, what the reputation of the company is, if you can get a hold of any of their financial information. Some of that is public depending on the territory that you're focusing on. You also want to look at, what their geographic location. Is it something that where you need to ensure that they are, they have a good reach within the export markets? What type of networks, do they attend conferences and trade shows? What is the possibility of what their staff complement is, if that is going to be a factor for you. What are the complementary services that they offer? Is it something that you can build on? And really and truly try and understand as much as possible about working in that target market. You also need to understand the dynamics of the market as well. From a competition perspective, you can do desk research here to get that information, and I will touch on the research part next session. But I'm just telling you, you can do some of that right now. In terms of the research aspect as well, you can get help, as I mentioned before, from TTCSI for services and from Export TT for products. Don't ignore that. And there are other ways, other online research portals that I will be providing to you for you to access to get information during the next session. Yeah, but due diligence is really a must, but it starts with you. It starts with what criteria you are looking for possible partners to meet within for your business, because reputation is a big deal. Reputation in terms of the company, and reputation in terms of even the target market and how they do business. Yeah.
Great. Thank you again. That was the one question we received so far. So guys, I hope you all enjoyed the session, and don't forget to complete our evaluation form. All right, so the next session would be on the 18th, and it would be, as our facilitator told us, we'll be focusing on the research, so the importance of effective market research. That would be the main focus of that session. All right, so we're gonna close here, but again, please take the time. We dropped the link in the chat so you all could complete our feedback form. Before we wrap up, Michelle, you had anything you wanted to say again?
Actually, no, I know that it was a lot of information to take in. Normally it will take a lot longer and be more in depth in terms of the various methods, but I wanted to bring as much to you as possible this afternoon. If you have any particular questions, burning questions that you do want to get some more feedback on, if they can send it to you, Jonathan, and you could forward it to me, I'm very willing to answer those questions. Okay,
all right,
I just
great.
want to put that out there. Yeah.
All right, so guys, you can email us training@ybtt.org if you have any questions. No, we did not share the recording and so on as yet. That will be shared at the end of the series to answer the question in the chat. And you're getting some compliments in the chat as well, so
Yeah,
that's good.
Thank you so very much, everyone. Thank you for your attention.
All right, guys, so we'll wrap up here. All right, and we'll see you all on the 18th. So everyone stay safe, and we'll see you then. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care, guys.